I'm Anita, 64 years old, and this Christmas was supposed to be like the 40 others before it. Family gathered at our home, grandkids unwrapping presents, my special eggnog flowing freely. Then came that phone call from my son Justin. "We don't want you at Christmas this year." Those words shattered my heart into 1,000 pieces. But sometimes when family closes a door, you find an unexpected window. What happened next changed everything. Before we continue this journey together, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments, hit that subscribe button, and let's explore how holiday heartbreak led to an unexpected blessing. Family has always been my North Star. From the moment I held Justin in my arms at Memorial Hospital on that snowy February morning in 1984, I knew my purpose. Roger and I had been married for 3 years by then, young and ambitious. He was building his career at Wilson Manufacturing, while I was climbing the corporate ladder at Blackwell Insurance. When Justin arrived, everything shifted. I still remember my boss's disappointment when I declined the regional manager position that would have required frequent travel. "You're throwing away your future," he warned. But watching Justin take his first steps, I knew I wasn't throwing away anything. I was investing in what mattered most. Our modest 3-bedroom colonial in Millfield became the center of our universe. I transformed the spare bedroom into a nursery, painting clouds on the ceiling myself. Roger would come home from long shifts to find me reading picture books to Justin, his tiny fingers pointing at colorful illustrations. Those early years were exhausting, but magical, like living inside a snow globe of perfect moments. Justin was our only child. Complications during his birth meant there wouldn't be siblings, so we poured all our parental energy into him. Perhaps that was our first mistake, loving too fiercely, giving too freely. But how can loving your child ever be wrong? As Justin grew, our bond deepened. He was thoughtful and bright, bringing home art projects dedicated to the best mom in the universe. Every school play, baseball game, and science fair found me in the front row, camera ready. Roger coached his Little League team, taught him to fish at Lake Cartwright, and stayed up late helping with algebra homework. Christmas became our family's crowning tradition. Each year, I added new elements that became sacred rituals, matching pajamas on Christmas Eve, Roger reading "The Night Before Christmas" by the fireplace, special ornaments marking milestones in Justin's life. The scent of my cinnamon apple pie would fill the house as Justin placed the star atop our tree. The neighbors knew our home by the elaborate light display Roger installed, adding new elements annually until our electric bill made us wince. When Justin left for State University, I cried for 3 days. Roger reminded me this was what we'd worked for, raising a son confident enough to spread his wings. The house felt cavernous without him, but holidays brought him home and restored our family circle. Even during his college years, Christmas remained sacred. He'd bring laundry and appetite, leaving with containers of leftovers and my homemade cookies. Then came Marissa. They met during Justin's senior year. He was studying business, she was pursuing marketing. Their romance moved quickly. I still remember Justin calling to tell us he was bringing someone special home for Thanksgiving. "You'll love her, Mom," he promised. "She's amazing." Marissa arrived wearing designer clothes and a perfect smile. She complimented our home in a way that somehow felt like criticism. When I served the turkey I'd spent 2 days preparing, she mentioned her preference for plant-based eating. "But this is fine for today." She answered questions about her family with practiced responses that revealed little. Something felt off, but I pushed those feelings aside. Justin was happy, that's what mattered. They married at the Lakeview Country Club 18 months later, a venue chosen by Marissa's parents. The wedding was elegant but impersonal, with traditions I didn't recognize replacing ones I'd imagined sharing with my son and his bride. During the reception, I overheard Marissa telling a friend, "The in-laws are sweet but so provincial." I pretended not to hear. After the wedding, the distance grew gradually, like a shadow lengthening across our relationship. Justin and Marissa bought a house in Lakewood Heights, 40 minutes away, but it might as well have been across the country. Sunday dinners became monthly, then quarterly. Phone calls grew shorter. When their first child, Ellie, arrived, we weren't called until the day after her birth. "We wanted some private time," Marissa explained while Justin looked at his shoes. Still, Christmas remained our touchstone. For 5 years after their marriage, they came to our house on Christmas Eve, staying through Christmas Day. Marissa would make subtle suggestions for updating our traditions. Have you thought about a color-coordinated tree instead of those old family ornaments? But the core remained intact. Justin would still request my special eggnog, still help Roger hang the lights, still laugh at the same holiday movies we'd watched since his childhood. The changes began 2 years ago. First, they shortened their stay, arriving late on Christmas Eve and leaving immediately after lunch on Christmas Day. Then last year, they skipped Christmas Eve, entirely arriving midday on Christmas with the excuse of attending Marissa's company party the night before. I noticed Justin checking his watch throughout the day, and they left before dinner. I cried that night while washing dishes, but Roger assured me that young families have competing obligations. We should be grateful for the time we get, he said, always the voice of reason. This year, I was determined to make Christmas perfect. With Roger now fully retired and me working only part-time at the community library, we had time to prepare. By early November, I'd purchased thoughtful gifts for everyone, including Marissa's favorite expensive perfume. I planned a menu accommodating her new gluten-free diet. Roger replaced every bulb in our light display and added animated reindeer for 3-year-old Ellie and 1-year-old Leo to enjoy. 2 weeks before Christmas, I called Justin to confirm their arrival time. "Actually, Mom," he said, his voice strained, "I've been meaning to talk to you about that." The conversation that followed would change everything. I was hanging the wreath on our front door, balancing on a stepladder while holding the pine bough Roger had selected from Anderson's nursery. The phone rang, and I carefully climbed down, brushing pine needles from my cardigan before answering. "Hi, Mom." Justin's voice sounded tight, like a guitar string tuned too high. "Just in perfect timing. I was just decorating and thinking about Christmas. What time should we expect you all on Christmas Eve? I'm making Ellie that special hot chocolate she loved last year with the peppermint marshmallows." A pause stretched between us, growing uncomfortable. "That's actually why I'm calling," he said. "We've been talking, and we think we want to do something different this year." My hand tightened around the phone. "Different how?" "If it's about the sleeping arrangements, you know Roger and I can take the air mattress and give you and Marissa our bedroom." "No, it's not that. We've decided we want a quieter Christmas this year, just immediate family." The words didn't make sense at first. "But we are immediate family." Another pause. "I mean just us. Marissa, the kids, and me." I sat down on the bench by the door, my legs suddenly unreliable. "Oh, I see. Well, we could come for just part of the day. Christmas morning, perhaps I wouldn't even need to bring food if that's easier." "Mom." His voice hardened. "We want to create our own traditions with the kids. It's important to Marissa that we establish our family unit's identity." The pain was physical, like a fist squeezing my heart. "But Christmas has always been our special time," I whispered. "I know, but things change. The kids are getting older. Marissa feels strongly about this." I fought to keep my voice steady. "Will you be spending Christmas with Marissa's parents then?" It was a direct question, one I almost didn't want answered. Justin's hesitation told me everything. "Well, yes. They're coming for Christmas dinner. Marissa's mom is bringing her special recipes to share with Ellie. You know, passing down traditions." The irony cut deep. Traditions were being passed down, just not mine, not ours. "I understand," I lied as tears slid down my cheeks. "Well, perhaps we could get together the weekend after, exchange gifts then?" "That would be good," Justin said, relief evident in his voice. "Thanks for understanding, Mom. I knew you would." After we hung up, I remained seated, the half-hung wreath forgotten. That's how Roger found me 20 minutes later when he returned from hardware store. "Anita." "What's wrong?" he asked, setting down his shopping bags. I looked up at him, my husband of 45 years, his face lined with worry. "We're not invited to Christmas this year," I said flatly. "Justin and Marissa want a quieter holiday with just immediate family." Roger's expression shifted from concern to confusion. "But we are their immediate family." "Not anymore, it seems, but Marissa's parents are still invited." He sat beside me, taking my cold hands in his warm ones. There must be some misunderstanding. I'll call him later, man to man. No, I said, suddenly firm. He was very clear. They don't want us there. That evening, after Roger's own conversation with Justin, yielded the same result, we sat in our living room, surrounded by half-completed decorations. The Christmas tree stood partially trimmed family ornaments in a box at its base. The stockings I'd embroidered years ago hung limply from the mantel, mine, Roger's, Justin's, Marissa's, and the small ones for the grandchildren. The sight of them made my chest ache. 40 years, I whispered. 40 Christmas celebrations in this house. Through blizzards and illnesses, tight budgets and renovations, we never missed one. Not once. Roger nodded, his own pain evident in the slump of his shoulders. I don't understand it. What changed? Marissa changed him, I said, then immediately regretted the bitterness in my voice. No, that's not fair. People grow up. They make their own choices. But to exclude us while including her parents. Roger rarely showed anger, but I could see it building now. That's not right, Anita. That's just not right. I called my friend Barbara that night after Roger went to bed. Barbara and I had worked together at the library for years, becoming close confidants. Her 3 children were grown with families of their own, so she understood the complicated dynamics of adult children. Oh, Anita, she sighed after I explained the situation. I'm so sorry. Thomas and Julie did something similar to us when the twins were born. Suddenly, their excuse was the babies needed routine and couldn't travel. Yet somehow they managed a trip to Disney World with her parents that same month. How did you handle it? I asked, desperate for guidance. Poorly at first, she admitted. I sulked. I guilt-tripped. I cried to anyone who would listen, made myself and everyone around me miserable. That doesn't sound like you. It wasn't the best version of me, Barbara agreed. Eventually, Bill reminded me that we couldn't control their choices, only our response. So we started traveling at Christmas, spent 1 year in Sedona, another in Key West, made new memories instead of mourning old traditions. Her words offered a glimmer of perspective, but sleep remained elusive that night. I lay awake beside Roger's gentle snoring, replaying every interaction with Justin and Marissa over recent years, searching for the moment our relationship began to fracture. Had I been too intrusive, not supportive enough? Should I have pretended to love Marissa's bland quinoa salad at the 4th of July picnic? Kept quiet when she mentioned sleep training? Leo by letting him cry for hours? The next morning, I canceled my online order for the grandchildren's gifts, replacing them with impersonal gift cards to a national toy store. I looked at the snowflake sweater I'd already purchased for Ellie, one she'd pointed to in a catalog during their brief Thanksgiving visit, and wondered if Marissa would even let her wear it. Probably not. Roger called to cancel our standing order for the 20-pound turkey at Pearson's butcher shop, a tradition dating back decades. Family change of plans, he explained briefly when Mr. Pearson expressed surprise. The same explanation was given to the Christmas caroling group we'd hosted annually, to the neighbors who joined us for Christmas morning coffee, to the church committee expecting our usual holiday donation. With each cancellation, the reality sank deeper. Christmas as we knew it was over. 2 days later, Justin called again, his tone cautious. Just wanted to check in, Mom. Make sure you and Dad are okay with the holiday plans. I swallowed hard before answering. We're adjusting. It's a change. It's just this year, he offered weakly. Things are busy with work, and Marissa is feeling overwhelmed with the kids. Too overwhelmed for us to help, but not too overwhelmed for her parents. The words escaped before I could stop them. Mom, that's not fair. Her parents they're just different. They know how to visit without making everything a big production. Christmas with you and Dad is always so intense. The accusation stung. Intense? You mean caring, thoughtful, loving? See? This is exactly what Marissa was worried about. You're making this all about you. No, Justin. You made it about us when you invited one set of grandparents and excluded the other. After we hung up, I received a text from Marissa. Justin is very upset. We need space. Hope you can respect our decision without adding drama. Space. As if loving them too much was a crime. As if 4 decades of Christmas traditions could be discarded like last year's wrapping paper. That night, I removed Justin's childhood ornaments from the tree and packed them away. Each one held a memory: his first Christmas, the clay handprint from kindergarten, the miniature baseball bat from his Little League years. As I wrapped them in tissue paper, I wondered if he even remembered the stories behind them. If he ever told those stories to his own children. If he ever would. The days that followed moved in slow motion. I went through the motions of my routines, taking my morning walk around the neighborhood, organizing the library's winter reading program, preparing simple meals, but everything felt hollow. The approaching holiday that had always filled me with joy now loomed like a shadow. Roger watched me carefully, his concern evident in the way he'd bring me cups of tea. I didn't ask for, suggest movies I normally enjoyed, offer to drive me to the mall, just to look at the decorations. His kindness only deepened my sadness. We were both adrift, our anchor to family tradition suddenly cut. One morning I found myself standing in front of our bedroom mirror, really looking at my reflection. Gray hair I once colored now embraced as distinguished lines around my eyes that Roger called smile signatures, the slight softening of my jawline that came with age. I wondered if Marissa saw me as a reminder of aging, of mortality, of a future version of herself she feared becoming. Or was I simply obsolete in their modern family narrative? The doting grandmother role I'd imagined for this chapter of my life suddenly seemed like a fantasy. On December 18th, exactly 1 week before Christmas, I made a decision: I would return all the decorations to the attic. What was the point of twinkling lights and garland when the house would remain empty of children's laughter? Roger found me on the stepladder, removing the star from the tree. "Anita, what are you doing?" he asked, steadying the ladder with his hand. "Being practical," I replied, my voice tight. "Why pretend this is a normal Christmas?" Roger was quiet for a moment, then said something that surprised me. "What if we didn't pretend, but created something new instead?" I climbed down the ladder to face him. "What do you mean? What if," he said slowly, "we threw our own Christmas party?" The idea seemed absurd. For whom our children don't want us, the grandchildren won't be here. "For ourselves," he said firmly. "And maybe for others who might be alone this holiday. God knows we're not the only ones with family complications." I shook my head. That sounds depressing. A bunch of rejected grandparents commiserating together. "Or," Roger countered, "a gathering of people who choose to find joy despite disappointment. People creating new traditions when old ones no longer serve." His words sparked something in me, a tiny flame of defiance against the darkness I'd been feeling. Still, I hesitated. That afternoon, Barbara dropped by with a poinsettia plant and a sympathetic ear. When I shared Roger's suggestion, her eyes lit up. "Holiday orphans," she said. "That's what Bill and I call people with nowhere to go on special days. Last Thanksgiving, we invited our new neighbors, who couldn't afford to fly home, our dental hygienist, whose children live abroad, and my cousin who's estranged from his kids. It was one of the best holidays we've ever had." "But it's not the same," I insisted. "It's not family." Barbara took my hands in hers. "No, it's not the same. But not the same doesn't have to mean not worthwhile. Sometimes it can mean different but beautiful in its own way." As she was leaving, she turned back. "You know what else? There's nothing quite like seeing photos of you having a wonderful time to make people realize what they're missing." That comment stuck with me. Not because I wanted to make Justin jealous, that felt petty and beneath the mother I tried to be, but the idea of visibly choosing joy instead of victimhood resonated deeply. That evening, Roger and I sat at our kitchen table with a notepad and began to plan. We started with a list of people who might be alone at Christmas: Maggie from my book club, whose husband had passed away in March; Carlos and Eduardo, the couple who had moved in down the street and mentioned they were far from family; Dr. Stevens, who had treated Roger's knee injury and mentioned his children were spending Christmas with their mother and her new husband; the Wilsons from church, whose military son was deployed overseas. What about Diane at the pharmacy? Roger suggested. She mentioned being alone since her divorce. I added her name, warming to the idea. And Professor Jackson from the community college art class I took. He's new to town. Our list grew to 15 potential guests. The next morning, we began making calls. To our surprise, almost everyone accepted immediately, many expressing genuine gratitude for the invitation. A few asked what they could bring, and we found ourselves coordinating side dishes and desserts. We should get some new decorations, I said to Roger after confirming our guest list. Something different from our usual family themes. At Home Goods, we selected a silver and blue color scheme for the table decorations, a departure from our traditional red and green. I found elegant glass snowflakes to hang in the windows, and Roger picked out new candles with winter forest scents. None of these items carried the weight of memories. They represented a fresh start. At the grocery store, I revised our usual menu. Instead of the traditional turkey, we ordered a prime rib. The splurge felt appropriately celebratory. I selected ingredients for appetizers I'd never tried before: fig and goat cheese crostini, stuffed mushrooms with herbs and breadcrumbs, a charcuterie board arranged in the shape of a Christmas tree. "Who are you, and what have you done with my wife?" Roger teased as I added exotic cheeses to our cart. The woman who insisted on the same Christmas menu for 4 decades. I surprised myself with a laugh. Maybe it's time for Anita 2.0. As our party plan took shape, I found myself thinking less about what we'd lost and more about what we were creating. The guest bedroom was cleared of gift wrapping supplies to make space for coats. Roger rearranged the living room furniture to create conversation areas. I discovered forgotten serving platters in the back of cabinets perfect for our new menu. 3 days before Christmas, I had my hair done at Bellissima Salon, something I normally saved for special occasions. "Going somewhere fancy?" Maria, my longtime stylist, asked as she trimmed my silver bob. "Hosting a Christmas party," I replied, meeting her eyes in the mirror with a confidence that felt new. "Family coming in." There was a time when that question would have brought tears. Instead, I smiled. "New friends. We're starting a new tradition." On December 23rd, Barbara came over to help with final preparations. As we polished silverware at the dining room table, she studied me. "You seem different, Anita. More at peace." I considered her observation. "I'm still hurt," I admitted. "That hasn't gone away. But I'm also finding that I can create meaning beyond what my son thinks of me. That's surprisingly liberating." Barbara nodded approvingly. "The best revenge is living well." "It's not about revenge," I clarified. "It's about refusing to let someone else's choices determine my worth or my happiness, even if that someone is my own child." On Christmas Eve morning, I woke with a familiar flutter of anticipation, a feeling I thought had been stolen from me. There was still pain, a hollow space where Justin, Marissa, and the grandchildren should have been. But alongside it grew something new: curiosity about the day ahead, about the people who would soon fill our home with different voices, different stories, different energy. Roger felt it too. I caught him humming as he hung the last of the snowflake ornaments, his favorite Christmas sweater, replaced by a new blue button-down that matched our new decor. "Ready for our second act?" he asked, pulling me close for a kiss. For the first time in weeks, my smile reached my eyes. "Ready." Our doorbell rang at 4:30 on Christmas Eve, and Maggie from my book club stood on the porch holding a bouquet of white roses. "For new beginnings," she said, embracing me. Her husband's passing had left her alone for the first time in 42 years, yet here she was choosing to celebrate rather than isolate. By 5 o'clock, our home hummed with conversation. Carlos and Eduardo arrived with homemade empanadas from Carlos's grandmother's recipe, filling the kitchen with the scent of spices I couldn't name. Professor Jackson brought bottles of wine and an infectious laugh that seemed to break the initial awkwardness. The Wilsons shared stories of video calling their son in Afghanistan earlier that day, his face pixelated, but his smile unmistakable. What struck me immediately was how these guests, many meeting for the first time, connected over their disrupted holiday expectations. There was no pretense, no facade of perfect family gatherings. Diane from the pharmacy described her children's last-minute decision to spend Christmas with their father and his new girlfriend in Vail. At first I was devastated, she admitted. Then I realized I could either spend the holiday crying or find a different kind of joy. Two different kinds of joy, Roger toasted, raising his glass. Everyone joined in crystal clinking around our living room. As we moved to the dining room, I noticed something unexpected. I hadn't thought about Justin and Marissa for over an hour. The ache was still there, but it had receded, making space for new experiences. The prime rib turned out perfectly, its rich aroma filling the dining room, as Roger carved it at the head of the table. Dr. Stevens said grace, a simple blessing that acknowledged both the pain and gratitude present in the room. For new friends in a season of change, for the courage to rebuild and reinvent, and for the reminder that family comes in many forms, we give thanks. Conversation flowed as easily as the wine. I found myself sharing stories I rarely told, like my childhood dream of becoming a botanist, before practicality led me to business school. Eduardo revealed his work designing costumes for community theater, promising tickets to their spring production. The Wilsons showed photos of the orphanage they supported in Guatemala. Each person, I realized, contained multitudes beyond their holiday circumstances. After dinner, Barbara suggested a game she'd learned at a conference, each person sharing their most memorable holiday moment, good or bad. The stories ranged from hilarious to heartbreaking. Dr. Stevens described a childhood Christmas spent in a hospital while his mother underwent emergency surgery. Professor Jackson recalled being stranded in an airport during a blizzard, creating an impromptu celebration with fellow travelers using vending machine snacks and paper decorations made from magazines. My contribution surprised even me. The Christmas when I was 7, my parents announced their separation on Christmas Eve. I was devastated, but my grandmother took me aside and taught me to make snow angels in the backyard. Whenever life disappoints you, she said, create something beautiful in response. I'd forgotten that lesson until recently. Roger squeezed my hand under the table. As the evening progressed, spontaneous traditions emerged. Carlos led us in Spanish Christmas carols he remembered from childhood. The Wilsons brought small ornaments as parting gifts for each guest. Maggie read a poem she'd written about finding light in darkness. Around the coffee table, we arranged an impromptu gift exchange. Roger had purchased small wrapped books for everyone, and others had brought token gifts as well. The pleasure of these simple exchanges without expectation or obligation reminded me of the true spirit of giving. Throughout the evening, Barbara discreetly took photos with her phone, candid shots of laughter and conversation of our table gleaming with new decorations of Roger and me, surrounded by people who chose to be there. In one particular moment, she captured me throwing my head back in laughter at one of Professor Jackson's stories, looking happier than I'd felt in months. By 11 o'clock, as our guests began to depart, with leftovers packaged in containers I'd prepared, I realized something profound had occurred. This gathering of holiday orphans had created a kind of chosen family for the night, bound not by obligation or history, but by the simple desire for connection. The last to leave was Barbara, who hugged me tightly at the door. "I'm sending you all these photos," she said. This was a night to remember. After everyone had gone, Roger and I stood in our living room, surveying the happy aftermath of our party. Empty wine glasses on side tables, dessert plates with cake crumbs, the dining room table still set with our elegant new decorations. "Did you ever imagine," Roger asked softly, "that rejection could lead to something so wonderful?" I leaned against his shoulder, emotionally exhausted, but content in a way I hadn't expected. "No, but I'm glad we took the risk." As we prepared for bed, I realized that for the first time in years, I hadn't followed my Christmas Eve ritual of laying out breakfast casserole for the next morning, or arranging stockings just so. Instead, Roger and I had planned a leisurely Christmas day, just the two of us. We would open the gifts we'd bought each other, enjoy leftover prime rib, perhaps take a walk if the weather permitted. Simple pleasures without pressure or performance. "Merry Christmas, Anita," Roger whispered as we turned out the lights. I'm proud of us. In that moment, I realized I was proud too. Proud of our resilience, our willingness to reimagine a holiday we thought could only exist one way. The pain of Justin's rejection hadn't vanished, but alongside it now existed something new, the knowledge that we could create meaning beyond the confines of traditional family roles. As I drifted toward sleep, I wondered briefly what Justin's Christmas Eve had been like. Had Marissa's parents dominated the evening? Were the children overtired and cranky? Had he thought of us at all? For once, these questions didn't consume me. Whatever was happening in their home, we had created something beautiful in ours. Christmas morning dawned clear and cold sunlight sparkling off fresh snow that had fallen overnight. Roger and I slept later than usual, a small luxury, after years of early risings to prepare for family celebrations. We exchanged gifts over coffee, a beautiful watch for Roger, a pair of sapphire earrings for me that he'd secretly purchased months ago. For our traditional Christmas dinner, shall we heat up the leftover prime rib? Roger asked as we cleaned up wrapping paper. Actually, I said, I thought we might try that new Chinese restaurant on Maple Street. I heard they're open today. Roger looked surprised, then smiled. Continuing our rebellion against tradition. Embracing flexibility, I corrected, returning his smile. We spent the afternoon in comfortable companionship, reading books we'd gifted each other, watching a movie we'd never made time for during previous holiday rushes. The absence of chaos was initially strange, then increasingly peaceful. No mediating family tensions, no pretending to love disappointing gifts, no carefully managing Marissa's critiques of our home or parenting philosophies. Around 3 in the afternoon, Barbara texted, "Merry Christmas." Posted some pics from last night on Facebook. "You two look amazing. Call me tomorrow." I hadn't been very active on social media since Justin and Marissa had limited what photos of the grandchildren I could share. But I opened Facebook to see Barbara's album titled Christmas Eve with Wonderful Friends. The photos captured our gathering beautifully, the elegant table setting, the animated conversations, the genuine laughter. In one particularly striking image, Roger was raising a toast, while I gazed at him adoringly, the soft light of our dining room casting a warm glow on both our faces. "We look happy," I observed, showing Roger my phone. "We were happy," he confirmed. Different than expected, but real happiness nonetheless. I scrolled through comments from mutual friends, most expressing admiration for our beautiful party and new holiday approach. Several asked to be included next year if we repeated the gathering, a possibility I hadn't considered, but now found appealing. After dinner at Golden Dragon, where we enjoyed excellent Peking duck and the novelty of fortune cookies on Christmas, new beginnings are on your horizon. Mine predicted we returned home to find our answering machine blinking. 10 missed calls, all from Justin's number, the first coming in at 5:30. As I stared at the machine, my phone began ringing in my purse. Justin again. "Should I answer?" I asked, Roger, sudden anxiety tightening my chest. Roger considered for a moment. "That depends. Are you ready to talk to him without being either defensive or apologetic, because you have nothing to apologize for?" I wasn't sure. The wonderful feeling from our alternative Christmas still surrounded me like a protective bubble. Did I want to risk puncturing it with whatever drama Justin was bringing? My phone stopped ringing, then immediately began again. 11 calls now. Something might be wrong, I worried. Or he might have seen Barbara's photos, Roger suggested. Facebook has a way of making people suddenly aware of what they're missing. Before I could decide, Justin sent a text. "Mom, please call me back. It's important." Roger squeezed my shoulder. "Whatever you decide, I'm right here with you." I took a deep breath and called Justin back. "Finally," he answered immediately. "I've been trying to reach you all day. Where have you been?" "Out for Christmas dinner," I replied calmly. "Roger and I tried that new Chinese restaurant." "Chinese food on Christmas?" He sounded genuinely shocked, as if I'd confessed to something scandalous. "Yes, it was delicious. Is everything all right? Your messages seemed urgent." "I saw the pictures," he said accusingly. "The party, all those people in our house." Our house. The possessive pronoun caught my attention. In our home, I corrected gently. Roger's and mine. You know what I mean. Our family home, where we always celebrate Christmas. Where we used to celebrate Christmas, I clarified. Until you decided otherwise. A pause then. Who were all those people? Friends, neighbors, colleagues, people who wanted to celebrate the holiday with us. Instead of family, he said, his tone injured. I felt a flare of indignation, but kept my voice even. Justin, you made it clear that spending Christmas with us wasn't a priority for your family this year. We respected your decision and made alternative plans. I didn't think you'd replace us, he exclaimed. We didn't replace you, I explained patiently. We adapted to your absence. Did you expect us to sit home alone staring at empty stockings? Another pause. Well, no, but what? You wanted the freedom to create your own traditions without us, but expected us to preserve everything exactly as it was, just in case you decided to return someday. Mom, you're twisting my words. Marissa saw those pictures and got upset. She said it looked like you were happier without us. The irony was almost too much. Justin, you can't reject someone and then be upset that they found happiness despite your rejection. We didn't reject you, he protested. We just wanted one Christmas to ourselves. With Marissa's parents, I reminded him. That's different. They don't make Christmas such a huge production. I took a deep breath. So our crime was caring too much, trying too hard, loving too deeply. No, but you have to admit, Mom, you can be intense about holidays, all the traditions and expectations. It's exhausting. Then you could have talked to me about changing things, simplifying, finding compromise. Instead, you simply excluded us while including your in-laws. My phone buzzed with another incoming call from Justin's number, likely Marissa calling from his phone. Justin, I need to go. I'm glad you and your family are having a nice holiday. Truly. We can talk more after Christmas if you'd like. But Mom, he started. I love you, Justin. Merry Christmas. I ended the call. Almost immediately my phone began ringing again, and again, and again. I turned it to silent and placed it face down on the coffee table. 69 missed calls. I told Roger the next morning, showing him my phone log. 69 attempts to make their rejection of us somehow our fault. Roger nodded thoughtfully. What do you want to do now? It was a good question, one that required careful consideration. The hurt of being excluded remained, but our alternative Christmas had revealed possibilities I'd never considered. The ability to create new traditions. The freedom to invite people who actively wanted to be with us. The liberation from trying to please those who seemed determined to find fault. I think, I said slowly, I want to maintain some boundaries. I love Justin and the grandchildren, and I want them in our lives. But I also want relationships based on mutual respect, not obligation or guilt. And Marissa? Roger asked gently. She's part of the package, I acknowledged. But I'm done trying to earn her approval. If she wants a relationship with us, it needs to be authentic, not performance or competition. After breakfast, I called Justin back. His relief at hearing from me was palpable. Mom, we were so worried. Why didn't you answer? Because it was Christmas night, and I wasn't in a place to have a productive conversation. I explained honestly. 69 calls in a few hours suggests an emergency, not a discussion. I was concerned, he defended. About what exactly? That we were enjoying ourselves without you. A pause. The photos looked so different, not like our usual Christmas. It wasn't our usual Christmas, I acknowledged. You made a choice that required us to make different choices in response. I think you misunderstood what I was saying when I called before, Justin attempted. We just wanted a quieter holiday this year. You could have come for part of the day. Justin, I said firmly, you specifically said you wanted Christmas with just immediate family, and clarified that didn't include us. You then mentioned that Marissa's parents were invited. There wasn't much room for misinterpretation. His voice lowered. Marissa was really insistent about how this Christmas should go. And you're an adult who made a decision. I reminded him. Own that decision. Don't blame your wife. Silence stretched between us. Look, I continued more gently. Everyone has the right to spend holidays how they choose. You made your choice. We respected it and made our own choice in response. What's important now is where we go from here. Where do we go? He asked, sounding younger suddenly. That depends on what kind of relationship you want with us, not just at Christmas, but throughout the year. I want things to go back to normal, he said quietly. I'm not sure that's possible, I admitted. But we can create a new normal one based on mutual respect and clear communication. One where your father and I aren't waiting by the phone for scraps of attention, but also one where you and your family are always welcome in our lives when you choose to be present. What about the grandkids Ellie was asking about you? The mention of my granddaughter tugged at my heart, but I maintained my composure. We would love to see Ellie and Leo. Perhaps we could plan a specific day after the holiday rush when Roger and I could take them for an outing, just us and the children. Justin hesitated. Marissa usually prefers to be there. I understand. But Roger and I would like some grandparent time occasionally. It's not an unreasonable request. After we hung up, I felt lighter. Not because everything was resolved, we had a long road ahead of rebuilding trust and establishing healthier patterns, but because I'd spoken my truth without either anger or apology. Roger pulled me into a hug. Proud of you, he murmured into my hair. Later that day, we received a text from Carlos and Eduardo inviting us to their New Year's gathering. Barbara called to suggest a monthly dinner club with some of our Christmas Eve guests. Professor Jackson emailed about an art exhibition he thought I'd enjoy. Connections were forming, expanding our world beyond the narrow definition of family I'd clung to for so long. These new friendships wouldn't replace what we had with Justin and the grandchildren, but they added rich new dimensions to our lives. Dimensions we might never have discovered without the pain of rejection pushing us toward growth. That evening I found myself looking at Barbara's Facebook photos again. In one, Roger and I stood surrounded by our new friends' glasses raised in celebration. Looking at our smiling faces, I realized something profound: happiness isn't a limited resource dependent on specific people or circumstances. It's a renewable ability that flourishes when we remain open to unexpected blessings. The days after Christmas unfolded with a new rhythm. Instead of the usual letdown I experienced when family departed, leaving the house too quiet and too clean, I found myself energized by possibilities. The holiday decorations stayed up, but I viewed them differently now, not as artifacts of a lost tradition, but as symbols of our ability to adapt and find beauty in change. When Diane from the pharmacy called to thank us for the Christmas Eve invitation and suggest getting together for coffee, I didn't hesitate to accept. When Professor Jackson mentioned a weekend art class he was teaching at the community center, I signed up immediately. These weren't replacement relationships for family. They were additions expanding our circle in ways that felt both refreshing and nurturing. Justin continued, calling his approach shifting between defensiveness and tentative reconciliation. In our third conversation after Christmas, he finally admitted what I'd suspected: their holiday hadn't gone as planned. Ellie had a meltdown when she realized we weren't going to your house, he confessed. She wanted Grandma's special pancakes and Grandpa's silly Santa jokes, and Leo was fussy all day. Nothing would settle him. Children thrive on consistency. I observed neutrally, resisting the urge to say, I told you so. And Marissa's parents, he hesitated. Let's just say their quiet presence turned into a lot of opinions about our parenting, our house, even how we trim our tree. I bit back a smile. Family dynamics can be complicated. I should have seen it coming, he admitted. You and Dad never criticize. They always do, just very politely, so you can't really object. This revelation about my in-laws explained so much, but I chose not to dwell on it. We all make choices based on the information we have at the time, I offered. The important thing is learning from the experience. When we finally arranged to see the grandchildren the weekend after New Year's, Marissa insisted on meeting at a neutral location, a play space called Kid Zone, rather than having us visit their home or bringing the children to ours. I recognized the boundary setting for what it was and accepted graciously. Progress would be incremental. Seeing Ellie run toward us across the padded floor of Kid Zone, her dark curls bouncing and arms outstretched, melted something inside me. Grandma, Grandpa, you were lost. We weren't lost, sweetheart, I explained, kneeling to her level. We were just having a different kind of Christmas this year. But we missed you very much. Roger scooped up little Leo, who studied his grandfather solemnly, before breaking into a toothless grin of recognition. These precious bonds remained despite adult complications. Marissa sat stiffly on a bench across the room, pretending to be absorbed in her phone, while actually watching our every interaction. When I approached with coffee and a peace offering a magazine she'd mentioned wanting to read, she accepted with cool politeness. "The photos from your party looked lovely," she commented, her tone carefully neutral. "Thank you," I replied. It was different but meaningful in its own way. Justin was quite surprised. I met her gaze directly. Change is often surprising, isn't it? But sometimes necessary for growth. A flicker of something recognition perhaps passed across her face. We wouldn't be close friends, Marissa and I perhaps ever. But in that moment, a silent understanding passed between us. The dynamic had shifted. Her power to wound me had diminished, not because I loved Justin or the children less, but because I'd discovered my worth existed independently of their approval. On the drive home, Roger reached for my hand across the console. "Baby steps," he said encouragingly. "Baby steps," I agreed. The following week, we hosted our first monthly dinner with the friends from our Christmas gathering, Barbara and Bill Carlos, and Eduardo, Maggie, Professor Jackson, now simply Tom, and the Wilsons gathered around our dining table this time for a potluck featuring favorite family recipes with stories attached. The ease of connection surprised me how quickly these near strangers had become comfortable companions. "We should plan a group outing," Eduardo suggested as we enjoyed coffee and Maggie's lemon pound cake. "The Winter Arts Festival is coming up next month. And my community theater group needs volunteers for set design," Carlos added. "No experience necessary, just enthusiasm." As conversation bubbled around future plans and possibilities, I caught Roger's eye across the table. His smile reflected my own realization we were building something here. Not a replacement family, but a community of choice. People drawn together not by obligation or history, but by genuine connection and shared values. When Justin called the following Sunday, his tone was different, more respectful, less entitled. "Dad mentioned you're having some kind of regular dinner group now." "Yes," I confirmed. "First Saturday of each month. It's become something we look forward to." That's good, Mom. I'm glad you and Dad are getting out more." The irony wasn't lost on me, but I chose not to highlight it. "Life has a way of opening new doors when others close," I said instead. "About next Christmas," he ventured cautiously. "I know it's early, but Marissa and I were talking." "Justin," I interrupted gently. "Let's enjoy the year ahead before planning that far forward. Whatever happens at Christmas, we'll approach it thoughtfully when the time comes." His silence suggested surprise at my lack of eagerness to secure holiday plans. The old Anita would have jumped at any opening to restore traditional arrangements. The new Anita understood the value of thoughtful consideration rather than reactive acceptance. As winter melted into spring, our lives expanded in unexpected ways. I joined Tom's watercolor class, discovering a latent talent for capturing light and shadow. Roger volunteered with a veterans organization, finding purpose in helping others navigate systems he'd mastered during his career. Together, we explored restaurants we'd never tried, attended lectures on topics we'd always been curious about, planned a summer road trip to national parks we'd postponed visiting until retirement. The relationship with Justin and his family gradually improved, finding a new equilibrium based on clearer boundaries and expectations. We saw the grandchildren regularly, though not exclusively on Marissa's terms. Justin began calling just to chat, not only when he needed something a subtle but significant shift. One evening in late March, as Roger and I walked along the riverfront path near our home, he asked, "If you could go back to before last Christmas, knowing what you know now, would you change anything?" I considered the question carefully, watching a pair of ducks navigate the current below. "I wouldn't change what happened," I finally answered. As painful as it was, that rejection forced me to confront how much of my identity and happiness I'd placed in one basket. It pushed me to grow in ways I might have resisted otherwise. Roger nodded thoughtfully. The Christmas party has become something of a turning point reference in my mind. Before the party and after. Before I saw us as primarily parents and grandparents with other roles secondary. After I see us as whole people with multiple meaningful connections. Exactly, I agreed. I'll always be Justin's mother and the grandchildren's grandmother. Those roles matter deeply to me. But they're chapters in my story, not the entire book. As we completed our loop back toward home, the setting sun painted the sky in shades of pink and gold. I thought about the journey of the past few months, from devastation to reconstruction to unexpected flourishing. The pain of Justin's rejection had created space for new growth, much as forest fires clear deadwood to allow fresh saplings to emerge. Barbara had been right when she quoted the old adage, "Living well is the best revenge." But this wasn't about revenge at all. It was about resilience. About refusing to allow someone else's choices, even someone I loved deeply, to define my worth or limit my joy. In the end, being excluded from Christmas had given me an unexpected gift, the freedom to discover who Anita could be beyond mother and grandmother. The woman who painted watercolors and hosted dinner parties and planned road trips. The woman who set boundaries and honored her own needs. The woman who found family and friendship and strength in vulnerability. That woman was a revelation to me, and I suspected to Justin as well. She wasn't a replacement for the mother I'd always been, but an evolution, a fuller, more authentic version of myself that might have remained undiscovered without the catalyst of loss. Looking back on that transformative Christmas 1 year later, I marvel at how thoroughly our lives have changed. The initial wound of rejection has healed, leaving not a scar, but a kind of wisdom, etched into my understanding of family love and self-worth. Our dinner group has become a cornerstone of our social life, expanding to include other found family members along the way. Last month, we all traveled to Carlos and Eduardo's wedding in Santa Fe, a joyful celebration where I danced until my feet ached. Tom from the art class and Maggie from book club have begun dating their late-in-life romance, a reminder that new beginnings can arrive at any age. Justin and Marissa have undergone their own evolution. The perfect family facade cracked under the weight of expectations, leading to marriage counseling and more authentic relationships all around. Justin calls more frequently now, not from obligation, but from genuine desire for connection. Marissa remains reserved but respectful, especially since she experienced her own rejection when her perfect parents criticized her parenting decisions once too often. The grandchildren spend regular weekends with us. Ellie, now 4, has her own art supplies in our spare bedroom and loves helping me in the garden. Little Leo at 2 has discovered Roger's collection of wooden trains, following his grandfather around with devoted admiration. As for this year's Christmas, we've planned something entirely new, a family cruise departing December 23rd. Justin and Marissa with the children, Roger and I plus Barbara and Bill, who've become surrogate grandparents to Ellie and Leo. Neutral territory where new traditions can form without the weight of past expectations. No one hosting, no one excluded, everyone contributing to the experience in their own way. The most profound change, however, has occurred within me. The woman who once measured her worth by her family's approval now stands secure in her own value. I love Justin and his family deeply without condition, but also without dependence. Their presence enriches my life, but doesn't define it. Last week, as Roger and I prepared for our monthly dinner gathering, I caught sight of our reflection in the hallway mirror. Silver-haired, slightly stooped from age, but standing tall in a different way. There was a lightness between us, a confidence born of weathering storms and finding unexpected rainbows in their aftermath. "You know what I realized?" I said to Roger as we arranged flowers for the table. That Christmas rejection was actually a gift in disguise. It forced me to examine what truly matters, to release expectations that were limiting all of us. Roger smiled, the lines around his eyes deepening. You always did find silver linings in dark clouds. Not always, I admitted. But I'm learning. Every day, I'm learning. When our friends arrived that evening bringing dishes, stories, and genuine affection, I looked around our dining room table with profound gratitude. Here sat people who chose to be in our lives, not from obligation or habit, but from genuine connection. Some related by blood, others by choice, all contributing to the rich tapestry of community we'd woven together. If that painful phone call had never happened, if Justin had never said those hurtful words, we might never have discovered this expanded version of family. We might have continued in comfortable patterns, never challenging assumptions about where love and belonging can be found. Life rarely follows the paths we carefully plan. Sometimes the deepest wounds lead to unexpected healing, not just of the immediate injury, but of older, unacknowledged hurts as well. Sometimes rejection creates space for connection. Sometimes losing what we thought we needed helps us discover what we truly want. As I raise my glass to toast our gathered friends, I find myself filled with hope, not just for this moment, but for all the unpredictable twists and turns yet to come. Because now I know with bone-deep certainty, no single person, not even those we love most dearly, holds the key to our happiness. That power has always resided within ourselves, waiting to be recognized and embraced. Have you ever experienced a rejection that ultimately led to unexpected blessings? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if you found value in my journey, please subscribe to join our growing community of resilient spirits, finding strength in life's challenges. Remember to like and share if this resonated with you. Sometimes our stories are exactly what someone else needs to hear. Thank you for accompanying me on this path of discovery. Until next time, may you find family wherever love and acceptance bloom.